Friday shop update on the beautiful Catfish Camaro. All right. Okay, so I told you guys on my Facebook video that today's update would be fairly extensive. So here we go. All right, let's work ourselves from the front to the back, shall we? Heater will turn off here in a minute. Don't worry about that. Okay, so we'll start front driver's side corner. We talked about oil cooling system. So there's our remote fillers. This is a Hamburger's Performance part. And then I had to make this bracket back here to secure to the back of it, and then allow me to secure it out here. There was no more room in the engine compartment anywhere. There was no more room in there for me to hang a double filament in the engine compartment, and it's going to work out a lot better because we'll be able to run this through. So we're going to come we're coming over from here. This is the oil filter adapter, so normally this is where the oil filter would sit, but we're going to run a cooler. So we're going to come out from the engine and we're going to go straight across, and we're going to come up here and we're going to go into the cooler, and we're going to come through the cooler, out of the cooler. We'll go into the thermostat, out of the thermostat, back down to the filler, out of the filler, filters, into the filters, out of the filters, then back down and around, and find a happy way to go back in to the inlet. So there's the oil cooling system mounted. We decided to go with mounting the oil cooler up here in the crash bar. Again, we were running out of real estate in the engine compartment to be able to hang some of that stuff, and we need airflow to all this. The other cool part about this is that in the factory bumper, which I've got over here, this is where the grill was. Now this isn't an SLP car. The reason we say SLP is because all of these SS cars and the Firebird Firehawks, the Trans Am basically, they went to another company. They came off the factory and then they went down the road about 1.5 miles to another company called SLP, and SLP took off a bunch of the factory stuff that was just regular Z28, and then they put on some extra bits of SLP stuff. So part of the SLP package is our functional hood scoop in the hood, and so that goes in conjunction with the air box, and the air box sucks right in here from this inlet right here. And then when you look down in here under the cooling system, and cooling system is ducted through the front bumper. So it splits this air and brings air up over the top of the car, and then brings air in through the bottom, and then sucks it up through the radiator, pulls it through the fans, and then dumps it back down on the ground to go back out the outside of the car. So we're trying to utilize as much of this factory aerodynamics and ducting as we can. And one thing that SLP did not do is they did not utilize the crash bar holes and the front grille holes. So you can see right through there. Those sit right about there, which sits right about here in this bumper. So we went ahead and modified the crash bar, got the oil cooler in there, and then the other part is that it's going to be concealed under the factory bumper mount. So when we put this factory bumper mount on, I can get it up in there for you guys. That thing sits under the grill. So when all said and done, if you see any of the oil cooling system, you'll see just a line coming in up here and then running back down to go to the engine. So the oil cooling system should be all concealed. It's ducted, it's vented properly, we got plenty of airflow, and then it's going to pull this air and then push it right back down and out of the car with the rest of the air. So I'm happy with that on the oil cooling system. I mentioned before, it's one of the last parts orders I'll need to do is just get my lines and my fittings, and now I've got everything kind of bolted in place and I can start measuring all that stuff out. So that'll be one of my last, probably the last order. I also got to get the AN line fittings for the power steering pump, and we'll talk about that. How about right now? So this is a factory Volvo electric power steering pump. So this was a trick I learned when we were building a race car here a couple of years ago, and it supplies plenty of hydraulic pressure, and it draws 65, maximum 80 amps, and it's all electric. So I was able to order this part with the wiring harnesses and the factory bracketry. So normally this piece of bracketry would be up underneath and kind of cradle that thing for the Volvo. I was actually able to pull it apart and utilize half of the factory cradle, and then it kind of I told you guys I wanted to get it in there. Well, it went in there and it was so dang close. I just had to take and modify a little bit of the bracketry on this side and a little bit of the bracketry over here, and I was literally able to just drill it and bolt this pump into place. And I was able to use the factory rubber bumpers for the mount isolators, so that should isolate all the vibration and noise in the engine compartment from running down the chassis. So you'll hear it running in the engine compartment, just a like a fuel pump, but you won't get the vibration in the chassis. So we've got to run our wiring still for the battery. That's the next one of the next things I'm going to tackle here. I got a lot of next things, but we're chipping we are chipping away very well on all of these short lists. And so I say I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I was able to accomplish a lot of this stuff that I'm going to talk about here in just a 3-4 day period, so we shouldn't be too long. So yeah, I've got to run the wiring down and around, and then the factory fittings will come down through the extra hole. They'll come down along here somewhere and go around in here, and then they've got to run over, and they're going to get plugged in right over here. So it'll run down in here with this stuff somehow, some way. So I'm going to measure those out, the fittings, the lines, and at the same time as the oil fittings and the oil lines, and I'll get all that stuff ordered from one place at one time, and we'll finalize all that. So all the dressings are now on the car. I spent a good little bit fighting these dressings. There's little differences. This is an LS1, and when you look up the parts, especially through the parts suppliers, Napa, AutoZone, O'Reilly's, they say they're all applicable for the year and make and model, but you'll come down and put them on, and we found just slight differences in every little piece that we went to put on. So like, for example, the idler wheel, it took me 3 days to track this one down. Nobody could find it, and I finally found it, got it here, pulled it out of the box, and I've got to save all my extra stuff. So I've got, there's the old pump, and I had the old tensioner down here. Well, the tensioner, when it come in, it has a washer and a little detent in that actual tensioner. Well, this one that came in didn't, and so I had to take the hardware and actually modify the hardware, and then dig the old bushing or the old washer out of the box and use the old washer and modify the hardware just to be able to bolt it on in place where it goes. The starter, it's got a new starter in it now. The other one's over here. It was still functioning, but it needed some substantial cleanup work to make it match the rest of what we got going on over here. And by the time I paint that and clean it up, it was going to cost as much as a new starter, and at the same time, clean and painted doesn't mean it's new, so we'd still have a used starter in there. So I went ahead and got a starter for it, and then should be bolt in for this year, make and model, and it come in this tab was different than the factory tab. So then I dug the old hardware out and the new hardware and Some of them didn't work. One worked, one didn't. So then I had her run down and get the starter bolt kit. It's a doorman kit for this car. And she came back and it would fit through the bottom hole and fit into the block, but the top hole was too small for it. So then after all the fighting with hardware and starters and everything else, I ended up having to drill the housing of the starter in order to get this bolt to feed in there, but be the correct length so that it doesn't walk around and need shims. So starter's in there. We've got some sensors that we need to delete. That's why you see some of these are hanging and marked. So we've got, this is our new electric water pump wiring. This is electric fan wiring. So I'm just gonna get some new pigtails and jumper this together and then tidy all this up, tie that up. That'll be out of the way. This is the oil pressure sender, or the level sensor, the factory level sensor. So it's got a dummy light for oil level. We're going to delete that in the computer. We've got our O2 wires hanging. So the rear O2s get deleted out of the computer, and then these will get bundled up and then dummy plugged in the end of them. And then the front O2 sensors are the ones we're going to use, and those bad mamma jammas are hanging. They're hanging out right up in here. And then we've got some extender wires that came with the headers, so we're going to extend this wiring down this direction, and the plug for the bung is right here. So then your O2 will sit right in here, so we need to run that extension wire, and I've got those over on the table. Factory air pump used to sit right here. Where's that air pump at? There's the air pump and all the extra old lines and all that junk. So that's the old air pump. We deleted all the lines and all that stuff, so we're going to delete the air pump out of the computer as well. So we'll have two O2 sensors, oil level sensor, and the air pump that all need to be deleted out of the computer when we tune it. So that's where we are there. We were not able to run the aftermarket oil dipstick just because of the location and how tight everything was, but we are able to get the factory dipstick right up in here. So we're going to run the factory dipstick, and then if we need to change the head on it, we'll change the head on it later. But right now we're just trying to do everything we can to get it put together, and then if there's little knickknacks that we want to go back later and address, we always can do that. Headers are in, but I have not installed the gaskets, and they're just kind of hanging loose right now on 2 bolts. I wanted to get the headers in so that I could put the steering shaft in, which is now in place, and then I get up on top and then slide those gaskets down in there. The header's got to go in from the bottom, and the gasket's got to go in from the top, and I'm one man, so I got to figure out how to make all that jive happy for me. I'm trying not to say my kid called me out on it yesterday. Okay, so we did oil cooling system, we did wiring underneath, we did dressings, air conditioner is done. We got new dryer, new condenser, new pump, new lines, new seals, the whole 9 yards. We just didn't pull the interior dash box apart. So that's the factory unit in the dash. Everything else is new except for this line, not this one. There's one line up there on top that I could not source new, so I went ahead and cleaned it up and reused it, but it looks just as new as the rest of it. Water pump's ready to go. I need to throw a thermostat in the thermostat housing, and then we'll throw the belts on, and that's all good to go. Power steering delete is there and ready to rock, and most of my wiring's tucked up and tidied up. Brakes, lines, ABS sensors. So we went through and we got our brake lines hung. ABS sensors are ran in conjunction with it. And then I tried to get all the details on this car right. So the ABS line runs in conjunction with the brake line. That's all fun and happy now. Same thing on the other side. So it's looking real pretty. And then speaking of brakes, we were able to accomplish the rears as well. So the backing plates are on. Backing plates were primo perfect. And the ABS sensors are installed. I lost my pointer. Where's my pointer go, guys? Backup pointer. Yes! Alright, so we did our custom backing plates here. We wanted the reluctor wheels so that we could run the ABS sensor. These are the 5/8 drill through studs. And then there's the second gen CTSV calipers. Those are 4-pot and a 14.5-inch rotor with the ABS sensor. So I've just got to finish running the lines. So I just got to finish running the electrical and securing that. Because we're running ABS and traction control, I've got to take and maintain these 2 factory brake lines here. Normally it would come down to the axle, like this setup over here. It'd come down to the axle, and then this would be mounted to the axle, and then you would hard line out to the right and then hard line out to the left, and then these would come off the hard lines and go out to the individual calipers. So I have the caliper lines. I need one more of these so that I can come in here and hook up to this factory brakes, get rid of these rubber hoses. This is the last rubber hose in the whole line, a whole car. So we'll get rid of this rubber hose and replace individual, and then I'll run hard line this way, hard line that way, and then hook up my braided lines out here, and we'll be ready to bleed the system. I do want to pop, so this has just got some dummy hardware in it that I had laying around the shop. I'm gonna get some good hardware for it, and then I'm gonna pop the calipers off and put a coat of paint on those, so those are red like these ones are. And then we'll be able to plumb it and bleed it and do all that fun happy stuff. So that's where we are on brake system. All the hard lines are in place, everything's happy and pre-bent and ready to go. I posted a video earlier about the K-member. This K-member is the biggest hunk of crap I've ever had to work with from an aftermarket company. I've been over and over and over and all over this thing, but I got the brake lines re-bent. This one's coiled up right there. The problem is that normally it runs out here. Normally it runs out here with the steering box with the rack and pinion. And what they did is they didn't put any instructions or any effort into telling us what to do with this brake line that runs out, supposed to run out here. Well, if you try to do what everybody probably tries to do and run it behind the tube, it don't fit. Yeah. So another brain hurt moment, but I got it in there and it's coiled up. The other side looks a little bit better than this side does. But it's in there, it's happy, it's tied behind it, and then I'm gonna take these tape off right here, and then I'm gonna put one more P-clamp right up here to hold this brake line once I pull this tape off of here, and then you won't see that red tape on there anymore. So, okay, that's brakes. Let's talk about suspension. So suspension on the front is pretty much dialed now. I didn't do string alignment, but we eyeball aligned it, so the steering is happy. I've got the ride height pretty much set now, and then I was checking my fitment at full lock between this corner and this corner. If you guys have been following this project since last year, you'll know that my big concern was right here and right back in here. And on the factory liner, we had rubbage going back here. Well, I've been kind of beating my head on the wall here these last few days trying to answer all the questions about this front end and these wheels and tires, and I really was very close to just calling the client and being like, dude, I know, but today I put it on the ground, we adjusted the alignment, got the steering stops happy, adjusted the wheel in the arch because it was way far back in the arch. I got that taken care of, and these are actually gonna freaking work, which is amazing. These are a 19 by 11 front wheel. The wheel is 19 by 11. And it's on the front of an F-body Camaro. So when it comes to that, we had to do a little playing. So here's my fender trim. So we nipped it and folded it under so this tire can tuck, and then we needed to bring this body out. And I was talking about that wide body yesterday, so I put this pad in here, and then I'm actually going to put a piece of foam strip on it so it can sit on the foam. And that's what it got us. So now you can see up in there how much more room we've got. And then I'm going to take this right here, and I'm going to take this edge off of the fenders all the way out to the outside surface. And then when this tire rolls in, it should roll up vertical and then just tuck right inside of there. And what I've been working on is trying to get the suspension to bottom out right at this level so that this isn't where we hit on the top of the tire. But I couldn't until I did this and that and this that I'll talk about in a minute, and then the alignment and the tires. I couldn't answer whether that was going to work. And today, I'm happy to say that we're sending it. Yeah. Okay. The last bracket, because I always forget to talk about things that I say I'm going to talk about. This bracket right here, we need to build, basically bring this out, whoop, about like that. And I've got back here on my notepad, and I have my metal out to go ahead and start fabricating. So 2.5 inch by 4 3/8, inch and 3/8 spacing, 3 1/4 spacing. Make some 1/8 inch plate, make some little brackets, and that should finish off the wide body for the bumper area. And then right back here, I gotta fix this because everybody jacks up their F bodies by the point that says this is not a jack point. So I'll fix all this, and then we're gonna get this kind of a little bracket block kind of thing secured like this. And then in this gap, we're gonna run a fender vent so that this air and this turbulence inside this inner wheelhouse can come back and then exit, and hopefully we can get it to cling to the side of the body as it comes off the back of the body. So that's the plan there. This will come out, finish out that wide body. We'll add a strip of foam, give us another little, maybe 1/4 inch, and then we'll get that secured like that. And we should be ready to rock at ride height for the race car. Ride height in the rear, I'm pretty happy with. We bounce tested it, and we got a rub action here like we talked about. So I'm gonna pop some spot welds, flare this thing out, fold this corner, and make these wheels all happy. Paint marks are done, which means this is all torqued and ready to go. Only thing left I gotta do is the jam nuts on the Watts link, the jam nuts on the control arms. And then this axle is ready for full send. Driveline is cleaned up. I didn't have to paint it. It cleaned up really good. So we'll throw that in. The last nuts and bolts under here that I need to twist are just the cross member bolts. And then there's a tunnel brace that goes in under here. So we'll slide the driveline in. I need to replace this seal. It got torn. I have it on the table. So I'm gonna replace this seal, slide the driveline in, bolt it all up, get the transmission tunnel brace put in, bolt that tight. These are done. And then when it goes on the ground for the last time, I will adjust the pinion angle, lock the torque arm in. The torque arm is what adjusts the pinion angle. So we'll adjust the torque arm and lock it in. Driveline will be set and locked. And then we'll come back here and take a final look at our left to right on our wheels and tires. Adjust the Watts link for the last time, lock the jam nuts, paint mark everything, and we're ready to button up brakes and walk away from the back of it. So really happy with how the back turned out. We did have to come in here and do some persuasion in the inner wheelhouses, and you can see how stinking close we are. I'm gonna give that one a little nudge. This one looks pretty good. I can get a good finger in that one, so I'm okay with that one. And we'll take care of those, and we'll be Good to go on wheel and tire fitment. New battery. Told you it was gonna be a long one. You still there? You still in there? Okay. Top end. Heater hoses. Heater hose clamps. This is the air intake tube for the mass airflow sensor. The LS1 mass airflow sensor does not read a wide enough spectrum, no matter what we do. So I had to go to an LS7 mass airflow sensor. And also at the same time, we put a 102 millimeter throttle body on this thing. And the factory air inlet, well, let's just say it's not 102 millimeters. So when you look through this one, when you look through that one, you can kind of see that would cause a restriction. So we're going to kill two birds with one stone. I'm going to put that sensor in there, the LS7 sensor in there, and then in order to keep this really cool, super cool factory air box intake, SLP, all that kind of stuff, we're going to secure that tube. I'm going to fabricate it to the front of the box and get rid of the small inlet, and then we can just go from this tube into the 102 millimeter throttle body. And then I got, of course I had to color match it, the red silicone and our clamps. And that'll take care of that. These are water pump inlet and outlet for the heater hoses. The fuel injector clips. We talked about this briefly. Okay. There we go. So we're going to go from the old style square to the new style. When I've done these before, they actually made a jumper harness, but then somebody made a molded part, which is way more up my alley. So we'll just clip these onto the fuel injectors, and then the factory clips will clip right on there, and nobody will be none the wiser. There's our transmission seal. Put that in, and then this goes with the battery stuff. Our external cutoff. So we'll do external cutoff, battery wiring, terminals, and the battery box and the lithium battery is already in the back of the car. So that's kind of the next goal once I answered this question and I finished up body fitment. Exhaust. Exhaust is on. Well, the headers are on. And then I have a 3-inch dual kit to run out through here. So I've got the V-bands for it. We're going to run 3-inch down the back. Then maybe somewhere in here, maybe we'll come together with an X pipe. And then we'll run it back and over the top. Where I'm really going to have to just kind of work myself through is how the pipes are going to come around the Watts link and come out the back here. Normally the factory run it up in here. So we'll probably run one up in there, maybe two of them. But you know, 3-inch, so it's big. Customer also talked about maybe doing some side exits, and then I would also, if we do an X pipe, side exits and run it out the rear, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do a push button flapper and then run it through the mufflers out the back and then push the button on the track and run it out the sides or on the track. So kind of what I'm thinking. I got a few steps ahead of me before I get to exhaust. So there's not a lot of stuff on the interior. I do have a front splitter to put on, but the bumper's already down on the ground, so we'll get the splitter installed before the bumper goes back on. before I wrap this video up, I guess the last thing that I want to say to you guys is that you know, a project like this, you know, pretty much everything that I've bought for this project is supposed to have been a bolt-on deal. It was supposed to be researched and developed for this platform, for this chassis. The F-body is one of those that's like the Hondas or the Jeep Cherokees. There's a massive, huge amount of aftermarket support for this chassis and this platform. And a lot of people have done these builds before. And by no means was I trying to reinvent the wheel on putting this car together. But I'm definitely finding out the hard way the struggles that a lot of the big custom builders run into. Pretty much nothing came out of the box and went on the way it was supposed to. We were missing hardware for pretty much everything. I've stopped 30 times to run to the hardware store to get nuts and bolts and, you know, fittings, and we need a lug nut today, we need a sensor tomorrow, we need well, we're out of rubber hose, and, you know. So if nothing else, I guess what I'm saying here is that try to have the patience with your builder and with your parts suppliers and with you know, conceptually building something. You know, stuff like this, it for lack of a better term, it looks good on paper kind of a deal, and to me it looked excellent, stellar on paper. And then we start getting parts in and we start having to deal with other companies, and you know, there's probably 30 different companies worth of suppliers and different parts and that kind of thing on here. And when you start having to deal with all those guys, it really starts to put hurdles and hiccups into the game. And for a guy like me, you know, I do wear my heart on my sleeve, and I do share a lot more of the business and a lot more of the ins and outs than most people will, but also at the same time, I'm not giving you the half of it. And this has been a brain melting project for me, all this suspension stuff and everything kind of going together until you start to kind of really wrap your mind around it. It's you know, like I said, it looks good on paper. You're like, man, everything should go together, it all works right, just order it up and we'll put it together and we'll make it as easy as we can. Well, things don't go the way they're supposed to when you're building cars. I'll just say that. So, yeah. Anyway, I've been staring at my face. I'll let you start the car for a second. We're real close to being able to prime the oil system and throw the valve covers on. I've got the injector clips now, so I'm going to run down and get the oil and all that stuff here shortly. We'll set this thing back on the ground and finish the front fenders probably Monday, and then get rears rolled, so that way that's all happy. Finish locking all the suspension in. We'll be done to trimming the fenders, putting the fenders back on, buttoning up engine compartment stuff, and then moving on to exhaust and hopefully firing this thing. So anyway, I think that's the gist of it. I don't even know how long it was. It was probably 40 minutes. But there she is. So I'm gonna get the hell out of here. I'm gonna go have somewhat of a weekend, I hope. And if you guys see this weekend, I appreciate you guys staying tuned. See you on Monday. Kick-ass week. You do what you do. I'm gonna do what I do, and then we'll see you later on during the week. Thank you again so much for watching. Really, thanks for being here, and thanks for all the support. Make sure to push those like buttons for me down there and hit that subscribe button. And peace. See you on the next one.